know that he's paying attention to them because he celebrates them. And it's really a great characteristic. So keep on celebrating. So the last thing before we paint is we're really going to set our intention, which really means we're going to stay positive. So I want you to decide now that you're going to speak with positive language. You're going to speak to yourself and to other people with kind words, because this is a new skill. You guys, I was a painting major, and sorry, hold on just a second. I was a painting major, and I have done approximately 4,000 of these boards in the last 4 years. I don't even know how many. So when this takes you some practice, please tell yourself that so did reading and so did walking, and you're learning, and that's a good thing. Okay. So we're going to stay positive. And the truth is, like, some of you, this will come very easily. If you paint a lot, if you already have paintbrush control skills, if that muscle memory is already there, this is going to be easy. If you write in cursive all the time, this is going to be easy. If you type, it's going to be harder, and that's okay. I will teach you the skills along the way, but just know this is going to be different for different people. I really do. I've heard it several times when somebody says, hey, look at mine, and they show it up. Somebody else says, hey, look at mine, and everybody stays positive. When somebody says, oh, mine is the worst, and they put it up, then immediately everybody looks at theirs, wondering if they should be judgmental of theirs too. So we're just gonna leave that on the back burner and go straight for positivity. So first you have to choose what word or what phrase do you want to paint. Start thinking about that. You don't have to make a decision now, but start thinking about that. Looking back in the chat will give you some really good ideas about where you want to go with that. Maybe some of the things you said that you wanted to be, maybe some of the ways you want to celebrate, maybe some of the things you want to celebrate will give you ideas. In your packet, I gave you 3 that you can choose from if you so choose. So already done would be love, or your acronym UWRF, or be the change. And I would be totally honored if you used one of mine. I'm also going to be very, very, very proud of you if you try your own lettering. And so for those of you who want to, these sheets of paper are what you're going to draw on for your lettering. And so I want to show you some of just my technique in how I do the drawing. The basic, let me tell you the whole process so you kind of get an idea of what you need to do first, second, third. We're going to just draw in pencil on this paper. Then we're going to chalk the back and put it against our board. And we're going to use our pencil to push down so that the chalk sticks to that board. So ultimately then your board will look like this. So it's just chalk. You're going to paint over it. And if the paint goes off of the chalk a little bit, it's just chalk. So you're just going to erase it right away. And it's like it wasn't even there. So don't even worry if you paint off the line. Like, don't add extra paint to like cover it up or anything. When it dries, you'll just rub it right off. And then we'll paint over the chalk and let it dry. That is the full process. I would say the hardest part is the lettering itself, the drawing on the piece of paper, because that's where the spacing and the sizing really, it's harder to grasp. So let's spend some time on that. I'm going to share a video that shows me kind of holding up a couple different options of words. Also at the very beginning, I'll show you that if you think you want to do several drawings, you might just grab more printer paper. These sheets of paper are 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches, which means if you take your sheets or your board and put it on the paper and just draw a line across, you'll get 3 more pieces of paper off of a piece of printer paper, and then a little tiny bit of scrap to just throw away. That way you'll have lots and lots and lots of pieces to practice on if you want to keep going. One of my drawing techniques is I'll draw and I'll put another blank piece on top of it, and I'll trace the parts of the drawing I really like, and I'll change the parts that I didn't really like. So if I love my J, but I don't really like my O, I'll just trace the J, write exactly how it is, and then add the rest of my letter or whatever. So if you have pencil, paper, scissors, and if you want to grab water right now too, don't do the water yet. If you have some source of water, I meant to say this at the beginning, you'll need some source of water, whether it's a water bottle or just, you can use your dropper to pull right out of a faucet. You're going to need some water in the other side of your paint. For now, for the drawing process, you'll need the paper, the pencil, and the scissors, okay? So I'm going to, if you want to grab those things, go for it. I'm going to start sharing this video to share kind of how I organize my drawings. So I'm going to share my screen. And here is our video. So these are going to be the final product here. These are just the regular piece of paper. There's 2 of them in your packet. Like I said, you can trace it and cut along those lines to get a few more. When I'm doing a design, it usually takes me 6 or 7 tries. Sometimes I get it right away. You can always draw and then erase, but sometimes it's kind of nice to use your first drawing as a reference for like, okay, that was too big, so I need to make it smaller. And if you can see your first drawing, you can kind of remember, oh yeah, I wanted to make that smaller. So there's your extra pieces of paper. As you get those set up, you'll have plenty of time to do it later. You don't have to do it right away with me. But once you have those pieces of paper, you're going to start drawing. So this is one example. I love the "you are loved" phrase, but I couldn't fit it all straight on. So I did the "you are small" and then "loved" big. I pushed that V line up to fill the space, and the top of the L and the top of the D to really go to the very top and the very bottom of the board. "I love you more," I made the "more" kind of the main emphasis and brought the E up and the M down, kind of like a mustache, to fill that space. "Joy" is super short, so I extended that front part and I extended the end to fill it, again going from the very top to the very bottom of my board. "Be brave," I love the letter B. I love lettering this letter. So each part needs to be like work together, but also look good next to each other. So again, you want to kind of balance one side to the other. "You cannot write smaller than these letters here." "You are my" are already pretty small on this thing. So as you're creating your phrase, don't go much smaller than that. Again, the "home" I brought to the edges, and this one is in your packet. "Be the," and then change slanting up. I had to slant up because that G kind of hangs down, but I still wanted to fill the whole space. So I kind of did the slant version there. So later, then you'll get to letter those and they'll look like that. We'll get there too. I'm going to stop the share and come back. Actually, I might not. If it's okay with you, I'm going to jump right into this next video. Elise, is this still looking normal for you? Your picture disappeared on me. I'm going to hold on.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I see you. I don't see the shared screen anymore.
Okay, I will share this again. I don't know where there you guys are. I lost you behind my video. All right. This next one is going to be of our actual brush strokes. So once you've drawn onto your paper, you will trace that onto your board and then you'll paint over it. And the brush strokes are the thing that you'll need to practice the longest, and is the basis of lettering. Once you get these brush strokes down, you can letter any word or phrase onto anything. By the way, my favorite tool for lettering is actually a fat Crayola marker, because you can do the thin shape and the thick line with that. So as you continue practicing, if you discover you want to move into markers or pens or whatever and away from paintbrushes, totally go for the thick Crayola markers to really get down your lettering. We can talk more about that later. So anyway, so video 1 was about showing kind of the different lettering drawings. Video 2, I think, is actually going to be the whole process so that you can see that. And then video 3 will be the brush strokes. So we're gonna do video 2. I wanna show you the whole beautiful, I don't know, I feel like when I put this in here, I did the brush stroke second. Sorry, you guys. Let's do the whole process first. Here we go. All right, do you guys see me? Again, at least the video.
I see you, but I don't see your shared screen. Oh, here we go. Yep, I see you.
Okay. Perfect. So here is the whole process. If I was going to paint this Be the Change board. Just kidding, trying again. So you can see the chalk marks on here. I left those on purpose. So this is the one that we're gonna change, or that we're gonna change. This is the one we're gonna paint. So I lettered it onto my paper. This is just like the one that you had. I'm gonna flip it over. I always suggest putting a piece of white paper behind it so that the dark letters really show through. And then you're gonna use the chalk to trace those letters on there. You really wanna use the edge, not the side. You don't wanna use the flat side. You wanna use that tip for getting the chalk on. The outside of the chalk kind of has a coating on it that won't rub real well. The inside of the chalk is what you wanna use. Once you've chalked it, kind of shake the paper off and then lay it down. You'll use the edge of your paintbrush to center it. So I make sure I have the same amount of distance on the 2 sides and the same amount of space on the top and the bottom. Once I have that space, I'm gonna trace it on. And you don't wanna push so hard that it indents into the wood. It's not a big deal if it indents a little bit, but really the chalk will push onto the board pretty easily. So you're just pushing hard enough so that the chalk sticks. As I trace all the way around, I hold my hands there so that the paper doesn't shift. You kind of need a hand to keep it steady. I love this book, Holes. I hope you have all read it. And I use this book as my my wrist rest. So I put it underneath my book so that my hand can rest on the book, not just hang out. My hand starts to shake if I just let it hang out. So I use that. You're gonna mix some water into your paint, and I will teach you that later. You're gonna wanna thin it out a little bit so that you can get, so you can end your strokes really smoothly. For this font, when it's just print, I do my downstrokes first so that they're thick and all the same width. And then I do the thin ones all at the same time, so the really thin ones are all the same width. If I try to go back and forth between really thick and really thin, like this dramatic, it's just not quite the same. So I find that I have a better chance of keeping my thickness the same if I do those all at the same time. So that's how I do my small font. That font, well, you can see that in your packet. It's pretty small. And so when I'm gonna go really small, I usually do print like this. Now with our lettering, we're gonna do thick strokes and thin strokes. And I reload my paintbrush for every single stroke. I reload so that I get a really thick brush stroke. I reload so that I can really spread it out. And then from that thick spot, then I can move into the thin line using some of that extra paint. Then you can also move from thin to thick and just make your thick line thicker again. Please notice this is not like a calligraphy pen where I'm just going over it one time and like up, down, up, down, up, down, done. I'm going back over these thicker sections with 2 or 3 brushstrokes of that thick paint to make it nice and wide. And then usually just 1 brushstroke for the thin is enough. Feel free to fill in your spaces for your downstrokes to make them nice and thick, and move that wrist rest wherever you need. Once I get to the end of my board, I usually have to flip it all the way around to the side to do that. For this G, notice I do my thick stroke down, and then, oh, I just love that G, you guys. I just love those thin strokes. I'm gonna do my thick stroke on the E and then connect my thin stroke all the way down so that it looks like it's connected all the way through. And there we go. make that E a little bit thicker. And then at the end, I kind of go back and just say, okay, are my thick lines thick enough? Are my thin lines thin enough? And I try to just fade off at the end of that, be the change. Once it dries, which I would give it like 15 minutes, I lick my finger just a tiny bit, and then I take all the extra chalk off. Whenever you're taking chalk off, go in the direction of the line. Don't cross your line. This is acrylic paint, and if you get it wet and you rub it, it will come off. So you kind of want to go with the line so that you're just rubbing paint on paint or chalk on chalk, but not paint into chalk. So that is the painting process. What do you think? Can you do it? Everybody give me a yeah, we can do that. I believe in you. I know you can, especially when we jump into doing our brush strokes. So this is the time that we're going to start practicing our brush strokes. For this part, you are going to need your black paper, because this is what we're going to practice our brush strokes on. You will need your paintbrush and your paint and some water of some kind. You don't need much. So if you want to go to the faucet and fill up this little clear container with water, go for it. And you'll need your dropper if you're continually, getting more water, pulling it out, whatever. I like to have water throughout. I'd suggest having a water bottle if possible, but that's what you're going to need. Let's see about this. All right. To mix your paint, like I said, this is acrylic paint and this is cheap paint. This is what I use on 100% of my paintings. All of the paintings behind you are painted with this paint. It is 50 cents for a little bottle and $2.50 for a big bottle. So the reason I've really stuck with it is because I want this to be accessible to everybody, and I want it to be forever accessible to me. I don't want to have to go an hour to get some special paint so that I can do my project. I want to be able to grab any color, and I have every color to letter. And I want my friends to be able to find these materials really, really easily. I also find that acrylic is durable, but also easy to thin out. And then if you just let it dry, it thickens. So it's just really versatile that way. Okay, so how do I want to do this? Oh, let's mix our paint. Get your dropper. I would suggest that you start with 4 drops of water into your paint. Open your paint side first, then open your water side. If you filled it with water, close your water side, because if you open it, it'll slosh all over the place. So open your paint side first, then open this water side, and go ahead and put some water in there. I'm going to start with 4. If you do 6 or even 8, it won't be a problem. I wouldn't do more than 8 for starters. I love when you can sort of see through the paint and see the texture of the wood, kind of that distressed look. It shows the character of the wood. So if it's a little bit thinner, I really think you'll still love the way that works. And you will have an easier time getting a very, very thin brush stroke, a very thin point at the end, if it's watered down. If you find that you're making your brush strokes and it's too thick all the way to the end, and you're like, I cannot get it thinner than this, add about 3 more drops of water and mix it in again. And you'll have a better time getting that really fine point. So once you've mixed your 4 drops in, actually, is my overhead here? I'm gonna change my overhead camera here. And says I'm on low power. All right, can we see the overhead camera again?
Yep.
There. Okay, so your overhead camera, for mixing, you're really just using your paintbrush to mix the water into your paint, and it should be pretty thin. If you feel like you're having to push it around, like it feels like paint, you probably want to add more water. It shouldn't quite be water, but it's going to be pretty thin. And then I rub the edge of my paintbrush against the side to get it pretty clean again. So without further ado, I'm going to share my video of these brush strokes. I would suggest that you do all 5 of the brush strokes on one piece of paper and then set it aside and do all 5 on the next piece of paper. And if you want more practice, use the other side of your first sheet. And if you want more practice, use the second side. They'll dry pretty fast. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. And here we go. So this is going to be me mixing the paint again. This is the water side, my paint side. I'm going to use my dropper to drop 6 or so drops of water into my paint. I'll use my paintbrush to stir it. I do like to have a place to clean out my paintbrush. If it starts getting dry or clumpy, I roll my paintbrush in that water side to clear it or to clean it off. So you're gonna just mix until it's all nice and equal all the way across. No thick parts, no thin parts. Rub it all off. And then we'll pull our paper over here. If you have too much paint all the way up, that paint will keep rolling down the paintbrush and make splotches on your paper. So you kind of got to get it all off. So the first stroke is upstroke, which is going to be your thin stroke. I would make them maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inches at the most wide so that you can fit all 5 on the piece of paper. So you're going to make your upstroke about 1 inch to 1 inch high and try to make them as parallel as you can. The tricky part is really having that control of saying, I want this thin line to go right here. And then try to taper off at the end, almost like you're just pulling the paintbrush up. With these thin lines, you're using just the tip. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and give you kind of that time to do some of those thin lines. Practice that picking the brush up at the very end. That's your first upstroke. Now in calligraphy, the upstroke is always thin and the downstroke is always thick. So the next one that we're going to try is the downstroke. Now this, you're gonna have to load more paint onto your paintbrush and push harder to splay the bristles out. You want your bristles to go wide so that they're covering more of the paper, so that they're pushing that paint across more of the paper. Again, if you can keep them parallel, awesome, good for you. It shows a lot of muscle control to keep those things parallel. So that's what those downstrokes will look like. Like I said on my board, sometimes I have to reload a paintbrush 2 or 3 times to make a big, deep downstroke. That certainly is true of my bigger paintings. Those are wide paintbrushes, but I do have to reload them several times to get them to go all the way down. And I usually start at the top and just slide my paintbrush through it to kind of keep the stroke looking even though I had to reload it a couple of times. I wonder, okay. The next one is up to down. So you're gonna go up thin and down thick. Up thin, down thick. So this means you're touching just the tip of your paintbrush to the paper for the upstroke and then pushing it down to splay those bristles out wider on that downstroke. Guys, I'm gonna make sure that my phone is plugged in here. Hold on a second. Okay. Think we're plugged in again. My phone kept making noise saying, this is not good. All right, this is the thin up, thick down. Now we're gonna do the opposite. The opposite is, of course, thick down, transitioning to thin up. I wanna warn you here, it's totally normal to run out of paint, and that's okay. Notice right away on that very first one, I ran out of paint, which just meant my brush got a little too dry. So I dipped it in the water, I reloaded my paintbrush, and then I just smoothed it out by going over that downstroke to upstroke again. So thick downstroke to up, down, up. So this is called the underturn. The third one was the overturn. I'm sure you're very shocked at these names. Upstroke, downstroke, overturn, and underturn. Notice that some of my paint is thin. Honestly, I think it's beautiful that way. It's my favorite way to paint, to be able to see the different textures within the paint. The last stroke that I'm going to teach you is the hardest. Everybody nod up and down and say, yes, Laura, we hear you. We know this is going to be super hard and we are here for it. Got it? The reason this is here, or this is hard, is because it's just different than how you've learned to write. I'm going to teach you to paint a circle, which sounds easy, except usually when we paint circles, we start at the top and then we go down to the bottom and then up to the top again. In calligraphy, we start on the side, then we go up to the top, down to the bottom, and back to the side again. So I'll show you. I'm starting on the side and then going up before I go down and before I come up again. Up, down, up. I'm going to start on the side, up, down, up. So you're transitioning pressure 2 times. You're transitioning your pressure when you get to the top, you're pushing down harder, and then you're transitioning back up to that thin one. This might take a whole lot more practice. I'm going to paint one on this next row to say what so many people want to do. It's just super natural to want to start at the top. You want to start at the top there and then go into thin. That's not going to connect to your other lines the way that you want them to connect. In a D or an A, you really want to start on the side, go up and down, and then connect again. I'll show you in some of these, if you want to, I don't know, well, no, you can't really see my picture right now. I'll show you some of those other letters in just a second. So that circle one is definitely going to be the trickiest, and that is okay. But those are your 5 brush strokes. The upstroke is the thinnest. It's a little thicker on the downstroke, overturn, underturn, and the oval is real tricky. How are you feeling? Will you share in the chat how you're feeling about a few of your drawings? If you want to even hold it up, I would love to see a few. Anybody feeling brave and want to show me their brush strokes? There they are. Thanks, Kara. All right, Alex. Yes. Yes. Samantha, those are beautiful. Your overturns and underturns are so dramatic. Good job. Cool. Thank you, girls. Cool. So good to see. So truly, I would suggest practicing this for a while. Okay, so you want to practice on one side, then pick up the other paper, practice a couple more times, do them a few. If you want to smash the wet sides together so you have 2 more dry sides, do what you want to, but practice that for a while. I want to show you how some of those fit together. So you can see, actually, I might just, can you guys see my overhead camera? If I put this here, do you guys, if you want to make that overhead camera one the focus, that'd be great. So this is one of those ovals that it's like the skinny up, thick down, skinny up again, and it connects to the thick line from the side, which is why you want the thin to be there. Really, anytime you're going up, you're drawing a thin line. So in this G, I'm going up, so I'm drawing thin, then I'm going down, so it's thick, and then I'm going up. In the G, this is down, up. Then I pick up my brush and I'm going to do the A starting here, thin up, thick down, thin up. Pick up my brush and do thick down, thin up. I would suggest on a letter like a T that you do this thin line first in here and then the thick line, because you don't want to put your hand right on top of your fresh thick line in order to do the thin one. So if it's a really long letter or a big swoop, you want to take care of painting that thin before you have to do your thick stroke and cover it up. Anytime you can combine letters like the TH is kind of fun, never mandatory. Anytime you can pull a letter down or swoop it out to the side to fill spaces is really pretty. Again, but it's just made up of those thin strokes and thick strokes all the way across. I would love for you to return to your groups if you want to practice and show off your skills together, but I am always right here to explain things. So if you want to stay here, if you want to come back from your group and be like, hey, will you show me this again? I will have my overhead camera here ready, and I would be happy to share, to re-explain things. But I'm going to send you off into your groups to draw your pictures or to draw your designs, to trace them and paint them on your own. Remember, it's drawing, then chalk, which should be in your packet. You're going to chalk the letters. You're going to trace it onto your board and then paint over that chalk. The videos will all be in your chats. Like Elise will post those 3 videos that you just saw in the group chats. So if you want to see the layouts again, if you want to see the process, or if you want to see the brush strokes again, just rewatch those. Those are all on YouTube. These ones I made without sound so that I could use them in events like this and talk over them. So you'll just have to remember what I said, but obviously they're very visual teachings. So go ahead to your groups, enjoy talking to each other, come on back if you have any questions, and we'll bring you back in about 15 minutes.